What's up, my friends? Welcome back to the Home Slice. I'm so excited to have you with me today. Today, I'm going to be launching a new set of tests. Now, most of the tests I try to keep really short so you can enjoy watching them. And I really want to have a high value for not wasting people's time. So I try to get through it and make a few basic observations, but let people look at the broader research and sort of draw their own conclusions. Today, I'm going to take a deep breath and relax and explain to you what I'm going to be doing in this next set of tests. Now, I'm going to do that because in future videos, I'm going to point back to this video as sort of a guide for understanding why I'm testing the way that I am and what I'm hoping to achieve and what I'm hoping to find out. Okay, so back to the beginning. So it all began when I sent a few knives to Pete over at Cedric and Ada, and these knives I had sharpened in a dual grit method, but I had used not my normal method, but some different stones. There was a Maximet knife, there was a 4V knife, and both of those had what I understand now to be a wire edge. They had a wire edge that was retained on the edge apex, and as Pete was cutting through, Maximet got to about 500 cuts, and CPM 4V got to about 600 cuts, and the edge actually broke off because the metal that had undergone this like plastic deformation, this extreme bending, had not been worn away, and it was weakened, and it created a fracture line that a whole portion of the edge broke off. This got me thinking that I need to do some more in-depth research on which sorts of stones and methods actually work to create the most aggressive edge and which ones work to do a dual grit edge. If you're new to the channel, a dual grit edge simply means that one side of the edge is sharpened coarse and the other side is sharpened fine. So I began this battery of tests. I used some 9mm sisal rope, but I ran into some problems right away. First off, it takes a long time to cut through sisal rope enough to really dull an edge. And so I was sort of hampered from making quite as much progress as I wanted to, and because I really want to test different steels, different styles of edges for each steel, and it needs to be a somewhat quick test. Also, the edges really seemed to dull in a non-uniform sort of fashion. So they would go down and up, and depending on which little micro piece of edge you hit, you might get a different number. Because the rope was so small, the edge was dulled in more of a non-uniform way. So I got to thinking I need a rope that is bigger, that dulls things much faster, and then I can get these measurements more quickly. Intro, the death rope, and you guys who've been watching will be familiar with this. This is a ship rope, but it's a dirty ship rope because I got it for free out of an old storage area, and the death rope tended to murder. This ship rope tended to murder all edges for a long, long time. And mostly what we discovered is that if you want to get through a rope that has like silicates and sand and crud inside of it, you actually need an edge with quite a high amount of toughness or tons of carbide. So a coarse Maximet, things like M4 and MagnaCut would make it through if they had either a dual grit or a coarse edge. And things like S30V or CPM 3V wouldn't quite make it through it, but they would get close if they were sharpened to something optimal for them, which would be coarse for the S30V and dual grit for the CPM 3V. I had a lot of fun with the rope of death tests, but it wasn't really providing me with the data that I really want to get, because I'd like to be able to equip guys who have anything from really cheap steel to really nice steel of what the optimal sharpening is for edge retention and aggressiveness over the long term for their specific steel and purpose. So today I am launching a new set of tests using this guy. This is a 40mm manila rope. I have lovingly nicknamed it ANDE, which stands for a near-death experience, because I'm hoping that it's not quite as much of a death rope as the actual death rope. Look at that monster. We're going to try to get through this at least once with some Victorinox edges, and I'm going to test best fine edge, then best coarse edge. Then I'm going to take dual grit edges and isolate the coarse stone and try different fines with it, and then isolate the fine stone that's the highest performing one and try different coarse stones with it. And then when I've sorted that out, I'm going to isolate both the fine and the coarse stone as variables and control those, and then test different stropping mechanisms to see which overall, for simple steel, is the best method. After that, we'll start going through stainless steel and then tool steel and carbon steel, and we'll go in order from lowest carbon to highest carbon, and I'll take the highest performing edges from these Victorinox tests and test the top 2 or 3 styles of edges on each sort of category of steel, like your 0.5% carbon steels, your 0.6 to 7, your 0.8, your 1.0, and then your high carbon powder steel, and then your ultra high alloy steels. So that's where we're headed from here. In this test, what I'm going to do is I've taken an initial best score of this edge. I'll put it up on the screen right now. Now this edge is sharpened, the final sharpening and honing was done on a Spyderco Ultrafine with edge trailing strokes. This one goes out to my friend Theodoros Maliopoulos. I don't know if I said that right, bro. I'm still trying. He's a knife lover in Greece who chats with me often about optimized sharpening methods, and he really loves this method, going on ceramics all the way up to a Spyderco Ultrafine, finishing with edge trailing strokes, no stropping whatsoever at all for massive aggressive feel. On the final edge, we're gonna honor Theo by trying this one out first. I've switched my cutting board to a wood cutting board. The reason I had a plastic one for the death rope is because it would drop sand out of it, and I wanted something non-porous to scrub that out because I didn't want something to hit that and have a bunch of sand in the pores that actually dulled the edge of the last one tested more than the first one. As it turned out, nothing made it through the death rope more than once, so that was nothing but a formality. But anyway, we've got Andy, our friend Andy, and we're gonna cut against a wood chopping board. Now, I don't just want to test for strictly edge retention, i.e. how many fibers cut and what best score you land at with that. I also want to test 2 other things. One of them is edge toughness. I'm convinced that different sharpening methods have different toughness. If you want to see why I'm convinced, check out this video where I take my K-Bar Becker BK7 and strop it on a hanging denim strop to remove all plastic deformed metal and chop a board 1,000 times and it's still shaving at the end of it. That was wild and a real wake-up call for me to the differences in edge toughness. The way that I'll test edge toughness is I'm going to take this big oak piano leg and I'm going to take a 5 kg weight and I'm going to tap the edge into the corner of this at one specific spot 3 times and see if the edge bending affects the best score. We'll do 3 taps and then we will best test it again at the end of all the testing to see if the tap itself and the smacking that into the grains of the wood actually affects the keenness of the edge or causes it to break off or bend significantly. And we'll do a simple test like that for all the edges, which will sort of help us determine which edges are the toughest. The last thing we'll do, if you can see, I don't know if you can see, yeah, this funny jig here. This is a piece of wood cut on a 45-degree angle on a non-slip pad on a scale. So we'll start the scale up and we'll take the initial reading of how much this weighs. And then I'm going to set the knife on here and on the flat, holding it perfectly horizontal to the best of my ability, I'm going to slice through that. What that is supposed to do, if I've set things up correctly, is that when you're pushing forward into a 45-degree angle, it transfers the force downward, and it should give us a measurement in pounds of how many pounds it took to slice through this 9mm sisal rope. If we compare those numbers against each other, we'll get some idea of not just sharpness or keenness, which the best tells us, but edge aggression. If an edge tests 200 on the best and another one tests 200, but one of them takes 15 pounds to get through this rope, and the other one takes 4 pounds and it just shunk, then we know that the texture in that edge is causing a measurable increase in aggression. And I want to sort of quantify that. So we're going to do these simple tests for all these edges. And then we'll have some data points that we can actually graph against each other, and we'll be able to really see which sharpening methods end up with best toughness, best aggression, and best strict edge retention or edge keenness. Anyway, that's what I'm hoping for here. I've got a piece of paper to write down when I've done each step because I tend to forget these things. So hopefully that helps us keep on track. But thank you for sticking with me through that. And let's get to our first one. First thing we will do is we'll do the initial count of how much force it takes to slice through this sisal rope. That didn't really work. That said 0.0 the whole time. So I guess we got to go back to the piece of junk scale and see if that works for us. Okay, unfortunately, we're not able to use the digital scale, which was going to enable me to give you a live reading, but I'll analyze it afterward and put it up on the screen. But I've calibrated this to be at just about 0 without pressure, and let's see how many kilograms of force it takes to get through this. Looked like about 3, which is pretty good. All right, let's take it to our friend Andy.
Wild was the winter, she had strength left within her. Ground grew colder and colder.
Okay, that seemed to go okay. Let's get the best.
Words whipped and shivered.
Give her a test.
They were raised for their timber. If they could, they would run for their life.
340. Okay. Let's see if we can get through it again. 340. Monkey. Ow. Well, I can vouch for the fact that it is indeed still sharp because the blade rotated in my hand and it went into my thumb about 1/4 of an inch, which kind of sucks. But anyway, I'm gonna get a Band-Aid. I gotta go to a birthday party. I'm just gonna leave things set up here and see if we can get through that the second time. Suppose it teaches me to rush, doesn't it? Shouldn't rush when you're edge retention testing knives. Whew. Okay. I went to the birthday party. I really got my finger pretty good with this. So, Theodoros, you can be confident that your edge, actually, all the fine edges I sharpened this time were hair whittling, and this one was hair whittling quite easily, and also, as it turns out, thumb whittling. But I don't suggest trying that at home. All right, let's see if we can get through this the second time to get a best reading, and then we'll do the edge toughness test and the slicing aggression test afterward. All right. Okay guys, we have indeed made it through. Had some technical issues there with rubber bands, but we made it through twice. Definitely had to utilize the tip of the edge a little bit and heel to get through, but definitely going to count that as sort of making it. So let's do a best test. Okay, so in the upper 300s, it's sort of like lost its aggression, so I don't think that I'm going to perform another one of these tests, but we'll do a slicing force analysis real quick. Okay, it's an interesting first test. I think this manila rope is going to be good because it does definitely take the aggressive edge off. Like, this is feeling quite smoothed out, but it doesn't destroy the edge instantly. First, right off the bat, it looks like the aggression, the force required to make the cut, looks like it just about doubled from about 3 kgs to about 6 kgs. And the best number shot up from, you know, the 1 to 200 range to the low 300s to the upper 300s over the 2 rope cuts. The batoning took the edge up an additional about 60 grams to the point where it was over the 400 mark and in need of resharpening. So 425 is the last number we got. So it'll be really interesting as we go through these to see how the different fine edges do and if some of them excel at certain things. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed watching, and I'll just say peace out from the home slice. Take care, guys. Bye.